I'd like to welcome everyone to ABPCO's In Conversation With this month. And for this installment, I'd like to introduce James Rees, who's Executive Director of Conferences and Events at Excel, but also President of ICCA. And that is exactly where our interest lies this morning. So thank you, James, for joining us. We are very pleased to have colleagues like yourself talk to, learn from, and certainly increase our understanding of what's happening out there. So, and what is happening out there, it's a really, really tough year this year for our industry. Can I just ask you, what strategies have your members adopted to maybe perhaps ride this storm?
Well, good morning, Mike. And firstly, thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. And there's the big question: what strategies is everyone taking? It's a great question. From an ICCA membership point of view, I think there's multiple answers. ICCA, whilst it represents all the regions of the globe, it also represents 5 key sectors in the supply chain of the Congress industry. That's venues, destinations, meetings management, obviously, which PCO's dear to ABPCO's heart, is a key sector. Meeting support, which can be technology and software, other elements of meeting support there, and finally transport. And so you can look across those 5 sectors, and there are different strategies being carried out by those different sectors. Transport, for one, and the members are predominantly in the airline industry. Well, there's an industry that's been severely hit, and that they're just dealing with coping mechanisms and waiting for travel to be able to recover. So, and then you have meeting support organisations like software developers, that type of organisation where actually business continues because they're not dealing with the day-to-day meetings that ABPCO members are and we at Excel as a venue are. So there's slightly less of an impact. Clearly there's an impact to their customer base. So from a strategy point of view, I see most of the members adopting those from the venues, the destinations, and the meetings management sector, obviously the PCO sector there. And venues and clients have had to deal with postponements, contract negotiations, and really there it's been about maintaining relationships and building for the future. I have seen, and both in my day work at Excel, but also talking to colleagues around the world, that need to actually be a little bit more open than usual and say, look, here's where we are, this is what we need to do, we do want to come back. And I think if there's one tiny grain of good things that have come out of this horrible COVID pandemic, that willingness to be more open and understand each other's businesses and needs a bit better, I think is a healthy thing. Destinations, there's been, and both venues and destinations, and I guess all organisations have, where they can, been taking advantage of government subsidies to support retaining talent and staffing, because one of the key things is organisations don't want to be losing their best staff, because when things come back, it will come back relatively quickly. I think it'll be a long game, and then things will come back, and we can't lose all the talent. We have to have the people there and ready. So organisations, where possible, have been taking advantage of furlough schemes that we've seen around the world. Meetings management organisations have had to turn their expertise, traditional expertise, around and look at hybrid and virtual solutions. That's then brought in other third-party organisations that perhaps have the platforms for delivering those. So we've seen a lot of collaboration there strategically to work with, and some organisations that perhaps traditionally worked maybe in the corporate sector are being brought into the association world because of that and we've certainly seen that at Excel in London. A lot of the major corporations have been doing elements of hybrid really for the last 10 years. So those who've got the ability to deliver good hybrid have been starting to work more strategically with the association sector. So really a multitude of strategies, and dependent on your sector, the ability to ride out the storm and but to be prepared. I think that's the key thing, that we are all prepared for that. For when the switch is allowed to be switched on by our governments, we'll be ready to start meeting. And I think that's where, if you look at the Congress industry, there's obviously a planning time lag that will occur. But I think in the first instance, the trend we are seeing is planning for initially smaller domestic and regional events, and then the rollout of the wider international events following that, 6 months, 12 months later.
Well, thanks for that. That was quite a comprehensive, answer there, and you touched on a number of really interesting points. Because of your membership is so diverse. I suppose you've got lots of different ways that they have to really understand how they're going to survive the pandemic and stuff. But one thing I think that I've witnessed, and I think that you mentioned it several times in certain ways, is that it's all about how we interact with each other in terms of we will ride the storm together. In terms of relationship building, and understanding how each of businesses can be more transparent and open, and sort of get to the day that we can actually open our doors. So really interesting. And I suppose that over the course of the last year, those plans have changed, and they will probably need to change again as we sort of move into 2021, further into 2021 and into 2022. And you did mention the possibility and the probability, actually, of really sort of engaging with the hybrid format. So let's just talk about that for a moment, because I think that is quite sort of resonating with a lot of PCOs out there. How do you see the hybrids format coming into play? Will it be sort of a short-term sort of solution as we really then open our doors, perhaps in a year or so, or will it be something that's going to stick with us forever?
Another great question, Mike, and I think one we're all wrestling with.
Yes.
For me, I think, as I said, the larger sort of corporate event designers, event hosters have been doing elements of this for quite some time. And I think, and some of the associations with the resources, if you like, to test that have been testing elements of it. For me, I think there is a future for it. I think in our ever more digital world, it's almost inevitable, and we all see that congresses, the best congresses, mirror what happens in our lives and our daily expectations. We all, 20 years ago, we didn't all carry these mini computers around with us to keep us ever interconnected, and so it's inevitable that it will, and I think it should happen. One thing we are learning, and clients are learning, is the difference between, if you like, taking the traditional Congress and putting it on the net is not a great way of engagement with clients. At the ICCA Congress last November, we had an amazing speaker, a gentleman called Bob Bajan from Microsoft in the USA. And Microsoft clearly are up, very pro digitization, because that's what their business is. We've all learned to use Teams in the last year, so thank you, Microsoft, for that. But the key takeaway from me was the difference between taking an eminent professor of cardiology or oncology or whatever the discipline may be, and putting them in front of a camera and playing a PowerPoint screen. That's that's not dynamic engagement through a screen. And the likening is, if you like, if you think about actors and how an actor would act on a stage in a theatre as opposed to on television or film, and there are different skills in how you engage. So I think we have to learn how to almost train ourselves to use this medium better. And one anecdotal story from an international PCO, where one of their associations were concerned about technology and ran their event with a series of pre-recorded lectures, and the constructive criticism that came back from a delegate was, I don't want to pay to watch YouTube. So there needs to be this development of interaction, albeit through a digital medium and sat in front of a screen. So that's if you like, we will learn those skills, I think, going forward. And then if the skills are delivered well, the opportunity, there's a revenue opportunity for associations, because traditionally the Congress is a 3, 4, 5-day gathering of the the great and the good of that particular association, and the knowledge is shared in those conference halls and taken away and used to enhance the knowledge of its membership. But if the hybrid solution becomes part of congresses going forward, the ability to take that high quality digitized content and then perhaps sell it on a licensing basis for the remainder of the year would present a revenue generating opportunity for the association, and also allow that knowledge, which is, I mean, ultimately associations are all about knowledge sharing, knowledge delivery, the betterment of that particular industry or medical field. The ability to get that information out to more people that perhaps wouldn't normally attend the Congress could be a great step in the development of our business.
Absolutely. That is one thing that we have really been experiencing, how we can extend the life of an event in this digital world so much easier, developing our communities so much easier, perhaps in that way. But a couple of really good points that perhaps, we can talk about it just a little bit further, because I wanted to come on to asking you, how a PCO really can deliver best value for associations. And you touched on a couple of really good points. So what you said there was really trying to get our speakers to sort of relearn how they're going to deliver to an audience. It's all about those connections, which we are not getting perhaps as well as we are hoping for, although they have really improved over the last year as we understand how the technology can help us do that. But and as we move to the hybrid, we might learn again and it might improve again. But those skills on delivering something on screen versus delivering something face to face is different. And we do miss those connections that we would have between even speakers and the audience, and etc. But you also said about the potential for revenue. And that's certainly something that we have seen moving from face to face to a digital environment, where it has been more challenging to reach those revenue levels that we were at before. So, again, as we move out of 2021 into 2022, maybe perhaps more into a hybrid format, we have to relearn how we can really engage with that and provide value to our associations. So really good, couple of good points there. But perhaps your members have been talking about other ways that PCOs have also been delivering some great value. Anything else that comes to mind?
Well, I think the value to an extent is that we're all now talking about hybrid and digital and the way forward, but we must remember that ultimately the magic that happens in a face-to-face, and I call it magic because there are things that happen in that environment that don't happen through a screen. It must not be forgotten and must not be lost, and that's where good experienced PCOs know how to do that, and will continue to do that in the future. I mean, I think to my career, and I think it's true of most people, when we go to events, there is that magic created that allows you to build a network, to build trust and trusted business relationships with individuals. And that simply can't be done in any way. Until you meet somebody, you can't truly trust them. And that will absolutely continue. One trend we're seeing at Excel, we're talking to clients, both corporate and association, for their meetings for the latter half of 21 and 22 and beyond. They're seeing a lot of interest in sponsors seeking to be involved in the networking that's going to be happening at that event. Now, I would say pre-pandemic, finding sponsors for networking was one of the toughest sells, because how do you deliver ROI? So I think for venues, for destinations, for PCOs, one of the areas of development that we should focus on is that networking, or creating those deliberate or accidental collisions of people that happen when we go to a venue and we meet at a congress. And that could be, I think there'll be technological solutions, but again, we all walk around with one of these in our pockets, and if I go to Excel or Manchester Central or the SECC or wherever I go to in the UK to a congress, and I want to see Mike from the ABPCO team, and I know he's there somewhere, but I can't see him. Why not make those connections easier and perhaps more structured to allow those opportunities to happen? We've all been at networking events where it's a sort of a quite social, but trying to find someone in a crowded room is difficult. I think there is a real opportunity to enhance and improve what we do in that networking environment that perhaps was taken for granted. And I know some independent agencies have been doing some research during this pandemic period, because I think one thing the pandemic has given us is time to think and consider and plan. And all the research is saying that the predominant reasons that people go to face-to-face events is the connections and the networks they make. So that almost above all, and we know things will come back. They will come back in whatever the new formats becomes. But for me, it's that ability to build networks and trusted relationships that are the foundation of great congresses, and that's where PCOs can use their unrivaled expertise to deliver.
Absolutely, great answer. That was very, very well said. So how do you think that, how best can ICCA and ABPCO collaborate to drive results like that and the others we've been discussing about together?
Well, I think there is an opportunity. Many ABPCO members are already ICCA members. Many of the destinations, most of the major, I would say all of the major destinations and venues in the UK are ICCA members. And key for me, before today, I just double checked my ICCA figures, because as many ABPCO members will be aware, ICCA publishes its annual performance statistics, which shows where the ICCA rated congresses are happening around the world. And in the 2020 report, which will be an interesting one, because it will take on board a differing situation with what's happened with events, whether they've taken place or gone hybrid, etc. So I went back to the 2019 statistics report. 13,254 ICCA rated congresses happen somewhere in the world, and 53% of those happen in Europe. That's over 7,000 of those congresses happen in Europe. And on average each year, the UK sits about fifth on average on the ICCA rankings. It's normally third, fourth or fifth. About 600 meetings each year happen in the UK. And so if ABPCO members are not helping organise those meetings, there's a missed opportunity. And I think, and also 600 meetings a year represents 8.5% of the European opportunity. You know, if we could reach to 10, 11, 12%, well, that's another sizable number of events with business opportunities for ABPCO members here in the UK. So the very nature of the, if you like, the cake that's out there of congresses, and to perhaps work harder and more collaboratively with ICCA to increase the share of that business would be a really good opportunity. And then separately to think about the types of business linked to the regions that a PCO may operate in, whether it's you know, different parts of England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales. There are different regional strategies, government strategies, often linked to different industries or medical fields, and to really focus on if there's some embedded expertise in an area or a region, and to be targeting events that should perhaps be coming to that region. We have amazing cities, amazing venues all over the UK. So I think a redoubling of efforts, bidding for events that would sit extremely well in the UK would be a great way forward. And I think the other reason I'm sort of excited and optimistic about the UK's opportunity is not only through ICCA, but through my work at Excel. The perception of the UK, I think there will be a flight to quality after the pandemic, where people will undoubtedly be risk averse, and therefore you know, cities, destinations with venues with a tried and trusted reputation of delivering great congresses will be those that are chosen above perhaps more you know, destinations that might provide somewhat more of a challenge. And that's where I think the UK has an amazing reputation. It has all the supply chain to be able to deliver whatever a congress needs and what an association needs. So I'm very optimistic that we have a sound basis and a, you know, a safe and secure as possible a series of destinations that associations could be choosing in the future.
Fantastic answer, and I certainly, for one, look really forward to developing some of those collaborative opportunities, you know, with ICCA members and the destinations, and making sure that we put our best foot forward in terms of Britain as a you know, the UK as a destination. You know, and I certainly have all the confidence in our ABPCO members and our ICCA members to do that. So anyways, James, thank you so much for your time this morning. We very much appreciate talking to you, and we really do hope to see you again.
Well, as I said at the start of our conversation, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's great to share thoughts and debate the future, and obviously looking very much forward to working with all of the ABPCO members, both now and going forward, to increase success and mutual success for all parts of the industry.